Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Around the Nation, right here to Wiki Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf, with you on this Monday afternoon here in, is it the Mideast? Yeah, I know. So, I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. I'm back a day sooner than I thought I would be. So that's a good thing. We got a lot of stories I want to talk about. We've got some very important news on immigration. We've got a terrorist attack that you might not have heard of. Donald Trump's new schedule. That's fun. Medicare for All. A very surprising admission from the book from Michael Wolff. We've got Stephen Miller kicked out of CNN. Got some mixed feelings about that. Not about him being kicked out, but we'll get to it. I don't want to give away too much. Then we've got, of course, Amazon and the minimum wage, how much they're paying. They're actually paying their workers. So a lot of stuff in here for you guys. Before I get to it, I want to thank the patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation, for making the show possible. I also want to thank everybody else who's watching on both YouTube and Facebook. So thank you guys. If you could please give us a like and a share if you like the show. All right. Now let me get into the first story here, and it's actually something that is breaking within like the last hour or so. So I want to get to it before I get into the rest of the stories. So let me just switch over to this and take that away. Because, again, it's not the same story, so, all right. A federal judge has ruled on the Cliven Bundy case, basically saying that they cannot be retried for what they did. You guys remember that Cliven Bundy and his family members decided they would hold an armed standoff against federal troops. That happened actually 4 years ago. That's amazing. It's been 4 years since the Bundy standoff. It does not feel like it was that long. Like, wow. Now, they, of course, cannot be retried thanks to this federal judge. This is Gloria Navarro, who declared a mistrial in the case last month, saying federal prosecutors willfully withheld evidence that lawyers for the Bundys and alleged co-conspirator Ryan Payne should have had access to when mounting the defense. She said the attorneys were in violation of the Brady Rule, which requires prosecutors to disclose evidence that could have been favorable to a defendant. So basically, the prosecutors dropped the ball. So the prosecutors did not give them, I guess, their due process and the evidence that they could use to obviously make a case for themselves. So not only is this case thrown out, but it cannot be retried. So that is problematic in a couple of different reasons. One of them is now you can pretty much go and take over a federal sanctuary whenever you want. That's what the message that this sends, right? You have a problem, grievance with the government? So go get your guns and your friends and go take over federal land. Point guns at federal agents, and nothing will happen to you. Get into a shootout where somebody dies. And that's what happened. They actually went from one sanctuary that they had taken over. They were going to another county to assist in another takeover of another county. And that's when they actually got into a shootout with federal agents. And yet, sorry, criminal trial, can't do it. Because the prosecutors had messed it up. Look, I understand that they're, the rules against double jeopardy, right? Where, okay, if this gets dismissed, if this case gets dismissed, you can't try them again. That's to prevent the government from targeting people and just continuously trying to take them down with criminal cases, right? In this case, again, there's nothing we can do. Federal prosecutors said, or messed up their case, and the judge said, look, They didn't get their due process as they're supposed to as American citizens. So, well, I guess we cannot try them again. So, again, this sends a lot of bad messages that, hey, you can go, if you're a right-winger, you can go and you can take over federal land, and there's nothing we can do about it. So go ahead, grab your guns. As long as you're a white right-winger. If you're a left-winger, if you're standing against oil interests, then you will be crushed by the state. If you're an African-American standing for civil rights, you will get crushed. But if you're a white right-winger, well, then that's okay. Go ahead and grab your guns and go and take over federal property. That's fine. This is a fucked up system that we're living in. And again, this case, it just shows how messed up it really is. Okay. I really don't want to get into the conspiracies of like, oh, were the prosecutors doing this on purpose? I don't know. I can't get into the heads of the prosecutors, so I can't necessarily say, right? I guess if you want to speculate, you can do whatever you want. You can speculate if you want. That's at this point, there's really nothing that you can even do. Did the prosecutors throw the case? I don't know. Nobody can really say with any sort of certainty, but what's done is done, and I just fear that this is a bad precedent going forward. Okay. Let's move on. We got more disastrous news. So, it's Monday. All right. The Department of Homeland Security has announced that it is ending special protections for immigrants from El Salvador. Now, this would affect approximately 200,000 people and basically would force them to either leave the country or face deportation. Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen said on Monday that the rationale, the justification for eliminating these special protections is that, the reason that they came here from El Salvador was there were two devastating earthquakes in El Salvador, right? So they allowed 200,000 people to come here as refugees in the wake of that using these special protections, right? So they allow them to come over here. Obviously, that was about 16 years ago. In that time, all these people had built some lives. So they settled here, they built lives, they had families, and so that's very problematic now. And here's the Trump administration saying, 16 years later, now that you've already established yourself in the United States and are basically citizens, you have jobs, you have houses, you have kids, party's over. Go home. But wait a minute. This is their home now. Again, if they're already here, they're paying taxes, they already have families and homes, why not just extend them a pathway to citizenship? That would make sense. But of course, this is the Trump administration we're talking about, and they're already making the decision. No, sorry, we're going to send these people back. Now, let me give you some details here. This is from the Washington Post about people with this status, right? These are the people that are going to be losing their status here in America. And it was a legal status, by the way, where they could get jobs, they could actually work, and they could own businesses and houses and do all the stuff that citizens can do under these protections, right? These people are fully vetted, fingerprinted, and incorporated into American society, right? And these are people who thought, hey, look, if we just keep working and we keep paying taxes, then maybe we can become citizens one day. Well, the answer to that is now, no, you cannot become citizens. Now you have to be deported back to El Salvador. Amazing. This is horrific. Now, there's some problems with that, obviously. For one, El Salvador doesn't have the room. first of all, Salvadorian President Salvador Sanchez Cerén, I know I said that right, said he talked to Nielsen during a phone call to extend TPS so that Congress might have time to pass a law allowing them to stay permanently. Salvadorians, including TPS holders, had sent a record $4.5 billion of aid to relatives to El Salvador. So it's a big boon for their economy. And plus, they're right now facing a housing shortage. So they send these 200,000 people home, well, or to that place. They're not going to be able to find homes for themselves. That's awful. Not only that, but according to a study, nearly a third of them owned homes. They work in a wide array of jobs, from defense contractors to school cafeteria workers, office cleaners, and even restaurant owners. So they're sending these people. And not only that, but there are a lot of jobs that these people fill that regular Americans aren't actually qualified to fill. For example, Mark Drury, Vice President of Business Development for Shapiro and Duncan, said the end of TPS would worsen a lack of skilled tradespeople that is causing his company to turn down jobs. So now, a lot of people who were affected by this say that, well, we're not going to go home. We're just going to stay here illegally. That means losing our status. That means losing our ability to actually work. Now, that would be an enormous problem. So the very problem that the Trump administration says, oh my God, these people are here, they're lazy, they don't want to work. No, by removing their legal status to work, you have actually created the problem that you said exists. And you're creating the problem that you say you're solving by sending these people home. This is a completely boneheaded move. Now, not only that, but Nielsen says that El Salvador, since 2001, has received significant international aid and has rebuilt their infrastructure. They said that the decision to terminate TPS for El Salvador was made after a review of the disaster-related conditions upon which the country's original designation was based, and an assessment of whether those originating conditions continue. The Department of Homeland Security said, based on careful consideration, including recommendations received as part of an interagency consultation process, the Secretary determined that the original conditions caused by the earthquakes no longer exist. Thus, the current TPS designation must be terminated. So, basically they're saying, well, hey man, it's been a while since you had those earthquakes. Everything's fixed up, so you can go now. Get the hell out of our country. That's what this order is about. Now, the interesting thing is, this has been extended, again, 16 years, right? Over and over again by Congress and by the president. So the reason is that these people, when they came over, again, they established themselves. They've actually contributed to the economy. They built businesses, homes, and families. And so everybody looking at that, even Republicans like George W. Bush, they look at that and go, ooh, no, we can't send those guys back. Are you kidding me? No, these people are actually people that you want in the country. You want to have people who work hard and who build businesses and, create families and things like that. But under the Trump administration, we've decided that no, as a country, we don't care. We just want you out if you're brown. So that's the direction that this country is headed, and it's disastrous. Now, here's the conditions that these people would likely face going back. The government of El Salvador is pretty corrupt, not the most corrupt in the world, but pretty corrupt, and is also known as the murder capital of the world. I mentioned earlier that they don't have enough houses for people, huge crime rate. So that's the conditions, right, that we're sending people back into. Maybe not earthquake-destroyed conditions, but still pretty bad. We're going to send these people back, many of whom, again, have families. Yes, that's what the Trump administration is trying to do because they hate Latinos. Well, let me guess. This is Stephen Miller's doing. Now, Stephen Miller is a guy who was the driving force behind Trump's Muslim ban. He is a racist. For example, back in high school, his classmates used to talk about how much he hated Latinos because he thought they were all on welfare. So, of course, that's what they're going to do. They're going to take away these protections. And how about, in my opinion, instead of taking away these protections, maybe we should do some immigration reform with the pathway to citizenship. That'd be nice. That means that, hey, look, if you're not engaged in criminal behavior and you work and you pay taxes, you should eventually be able to become a citizen. Like these people, right? Now, nobody wants criminals or gang members here. If you're caught committing a violent crime against somebody, then you got to go, right? You got to go. But nobody in this group, as far as it's been reported, is a criminal. Again, these are people with professional careers, lives, homes, and families. Maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't rip apart those families and send people back simply because, oh, we don't want them here anymore. No, we do need to work on actual immigration reform. So I think we should extend this. Again, hopefully Congress does the right thing. They do have that option, but I'm not putting a lot of faith in the Republican-controlled Congress. I don't think they're going to do a whole lot, and I don't think the Democrats are going to have a strong enough backbone to also do anything. So it's not looking good. Okay. Let's move on. Let's have some fun. President Trump is reportedly starting his official workday just a little bit later than usual. Axios is reporting that Trump will now begin his workday at 11 a.m. They're also reporting that after viewing copies of the president's private schedule, that he will be having fewer meetings during his workday. So, okay, so he's got a lot of extra time. He's taking fewer meetings. He's starting the day a little later. So what's he going to do with his extra time? You are going to be shocked to find out that the president will be spending more time in the mornings watching television and tweeting. Lovely. Because, that's just what he needs. More Twitter time after Fox and Friends. Now, to be fair, he'll also be taking calls. He'll be calling his friends and confidants. Boy, that's a great use of his time. Now, Axios, according to this, who is reporting on this schedule, found that the first part of Trump's day is known as executive time. Executive time. Officials told Axios it actually takes place in the White House residence and consists of Trump watching TV and tweeting. Now, Trump's normal schedule says that he reportedly arrives at the Oval Office, first briefing at 11 a.m., his first meeting of the day, and then returns to his residence by 6 p.m. So at most, it looks like he will be pulling a 7-hour day. Must be nice. But I love the name for it. It's executive time. No. I don't. You don't understand. I don't want to do a meeting. I don't want to do a meeting. It's executive time. It's executive time. Well, what are you doing on executive time? I'm watching Fox and Friends. Oh, you're so funny, Steve Ducey. I'm going to get on Twitter. I'm going to tweet about it. You idiot. God. Look, in this context, knowing that one of the words that is made in reference to the president among all of his staff is the word childlike. So to me, it seems like something a child would do. Oh, you know what? I don't feel like coming in early. So I'm going to move the time that I come into work because I can. Also, he can watch more morning TV. It's sort of like giving a child a choice of what they want for breakfast. You know they're going to choose ice cream. Are you going to be surprised if they choose ice cream? And you know what? Donald Trump would probably also choose ice cream. Now, of course, when this came out, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, of course, pushed back, and this is hilarious, right? She said Trump's time in the morning is a mix of residence time and Oval Office time, but he always has calls with staff, Hill members, cabinet members, and foreign leaders during this time. The president is one of the hardest workers I've ever seen and puts in long hours and long days nearly every day of the week, all year long, all year long. It has been noted by reporters many times that they wish he would slow down because they sometimes have trouble keeping up with him, she said in a statement to Axios. Oh my God, that is hilarious. Or it should be hilarious. I have a hard time believing that reporters are having a hard time keeping up with the president because he's so busy. You know what they have a hard time keeping up with? The insane amount of tweets and statements he puts out. In fact, they're so busy following those tweets because they're all crazy that they're actually missing out on the policy agenda of the Trump administration, which ends up being overshadowed. Now, that policy, of course, that agenda is deregulation, corruption, and more cronyism. So that statement, super, super huge load of BS. But again, what do you expect from Sarah Huckabee Sanders? She goes out and lies to the public every day. That's her job. You know, he's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. He puts on long out. He puts in long hours and days. Yeah, at the golf course. No, the New York Times previously reported that Trump, according to insiders, spends up to 8 hours a day watching TV. And the new book by Wolf alleges that most days Trump preferred to be in bed by 6:30 p.m., watching his 3 televisions, eating a cheeseburger, and making whiny telephone calls to his friends. Yes, those calls were mostly him bitching about how the media is treating him unfairly. That does not sound like working. That does not sound like the busiest person in America. That's crazy. But again, of course, he's going to lie about it. Last year, he told reporters, I don't get to watch much television, primarily because of documents. I'm reading documents a lot. A lot of documents. And Puerto Rico is surrounded by water. Big water. Ocean water. Jesus, this guy's a moron. He also said that I actually read much more. I read you people much more than I watch television. Of course, that's in reference to the media, right? But look, he doesn't read. Also, we know this. We know that his staffers have to reduce briefings to tweet length size because he can't pay attention to more than 280 characters at a time. And you have to pepper his name into those briefings so that he will actually pay attention, because he'll think, no, it's about him. It's about me. It's about me. It's about me. Oh, what did they say about Trump? They say something good? We also know that he watches Fox and Friends religiously because every day he will tweet about something that he had just watched on the program. It's like clockwork. Word for word. And now he's going to be working less and he's going to be tweeting more. But in reality, he doesn't work. He's living the life of a retired businessman. Essentially, golfing all the time. What is it, 91 days out of the year? Out of last year, he golfed. He was on the course. Going to Bedminster and Mar-a-Lago. Watches Fox News all the time. Eats fast food in bed. Shit. Wouldn't it be nice to be that lazy? But look, that's why the Republicans have their man. See, they actually don't want him doing a whole lot because he kind of ruins it. All the Republicans wanted was somebody dumb enough to sign anything they put in front of him. And on that, he's been very, very successful. Unfortunately for them, at the same time, their problem is that he's too dumb and that he actually starts to mess things up more than anything. So he's unpredictable. He's lazy. He's idiotic. He's not like a smart person. So I think Republicans got a little too much of what they wanted. And maybe they should next time watch what they wish for. Because he's going to bring down the party. One way or another. Okay. Jesus. All right. Let's move on to something more policy related. That's also in the book. Now, there's a lot of different revelations in the book by Michael Wolff, Fire and Fury. And one of my favorites is actually related to policy, specifically healthcare policy. That's something that I actually believe in. Now, in it, Wolff writes that the president probably preferred the notion of more people having health insurance than fewer people having it. Now, why do I say that? Well, I mean, look at the disaster that is the GOP healthcare plan, right? It was actually incredibly, epically unpopular. And that's because millions of people were going to lose their health insurance under the plan. And it would have been a giant tax cut for incredibly wealthy people. Now, that can be explained by, number one, Trump not really caring about policy and not knowing anything about the GOP plan. So that's why he really wasn't all that interested, other than sending out a tweet once in a while or saying, oh, we're going to repeal Obamacare, but not actually getting involved in the crafting of new policy. In fact, he was bored when they were actually talking about healthcare policy. He's like, I'm not interested in talking about this. I'm very, very bored. Let's go talk about something else. He would frequently change the subject, tell the same stories, et cetera, right? Now, he doesn't care, but generally, as a human being, he's like, oh, why don't we just have more people with healthcare? I mean, on the campaign trail, for example, he said everybody's going to have great insurance. I want to cover everybody, and I want to spend less, and I want to get rid of Obamacare because it doesn't do any of those things. He also said that we're not going to let people die in the street without having health care, right? Now, a lot of people might be thinking, okay, look, he was probably just lying about it. He's telling people what they want to hear, et cetera, et cetera. I actually have a different take on that. I actually do think he was being somewhat sincere. Why? Because, look, letting people die in the street is kind of bad for business, right? And if you're looking for popularity, if you're looking for people to like you, you would put forward something that is popular, that covers everyone, that does it for cheaper, right? And that's why he went on the campaign trail saying those different things, even though he actually wasn't at all involved in the crafting of real healthcare policy. Now, in the book, they said that he was, even when push came to shove, rather more for Obamacare than repealing Obamacare. Now that's very interesting because he railed against Obamacare, but it's something that he knew played really, really well with the Republican base. I don't think he understood why. But he's just like, oh, you don't like Obamacare? No, I don't like Obamacare either. Vote for me. Vote Trump 2016, right? But I think in reality, again, he didn't really care for the specifics. He didn't know that repealing the ACA would actually lead to so many people losing their health care. Again, he watches nothing more than Fox News, so of course he's being incredibly misinformed about that. But he was actually, again, very disinterested in healthcare policy. In fact, Wolff wrote that Trump was very disinterested in the details of the GOP's repeal and replace legislation and only went along with the plan so he could move on to other issues. Now, what other issues would interest somebody like Donald Trump? This is not going to shock you. Tax cuts and deregulation, but specifically tax cuts here. Trump frequently lamented in public that he wished he started the tax reform fight before Obamacare repeal and often expressed his impatience with repeal efforts, which took up nearly a year before Republicans threw in the towel after a failed Senate vote. In a speech in March in Nashville, he said, I want to get to taxes. I want to cut the hell out of taxes, but before I can do that, I would have loved to have put it first. To be honest, there's one more important, very important thing that we have to do, and we're going to repeal and replace horrible, disastrous Obamacare, right? So that's what he said at that statement. But see, again, he didn't care about healthcare. He only cared about moving on from healthcare to go and get gigantic tax cuts. That's what he wanted, which led to this. Interestingly enough, Trump asked aides about doing Medicare for all, according to Wolff. He reportedly asked, why can't Medicare simply cover everybody? That's a good question. That's a very good question. Now, before you think that this is because Trump really wants to help everybody and is very interested in Medicare, no, it's simply because that's a simple answer and the correct answer. But he just wanted to get this done so he could move on to cutting his own taxes. That's what this is about. I don't care about health care. I don't know. Let's just expand Medicare to everybody and move on so I can cut my taxes. That's it. That's it. Just open up Medicare. Be done with it. Be done with it already. You know how a broken clock is right twice a day? This is actually one of those times. This is something so simple. Opening up Medicare to everyone that even Donald Trump can get it. And he's like the stupidest man in America. Again, not because he knows policy, because this is a simple answer. It also happens to be the correct answer. Medicare for all is not only right, but it's also cheaper. It covers everybody and actually happens to be popular with the majority of Americans. And look, again, it would save everybody money. Everybody who's paying premiums. So, like, the big lie, of course, on Medicare for all is, well, they're going to raise your taxes. Your taxes are going to go up. Yeah, your taxes will go up. Your premiums will disappear. You know why? Because you won't have to deal with health insurance companies anymore. So, of course, you won't be paying premiums. And what you'll be paying in taxes will likely be less than premiums. Because, again, premiums continue to rise every year. Taxes, not so much. So, and look, the government has lower cost overhead than insurance companies. The government would be your insurer. They would actually be able to use their leverage to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies so that they can pay less, and also hospitals. Now, hospitals can save money on administration because they wouldn't have to hire so many people to deal with all the insurance rules and the different types of insurance companies. So that will also likely drop costs as well. And yes, there will be some job losses in that, but I think with more people having health care, the people actually going to get health care will increase, so there will be other jobs in the hospitals and not just for people who are insurance billing specialists, right? So it saves all this money in the long run by cutting out a lot of these unnecessary costs and focuses more on your healthcare instead of a company's bottom line. Again, they don't have to pay for advertising or executive bonuses or anything like that. So there's savings in your pocket, right? So in this, expanding Medicare, Trump was actually right. Now, of course, I'm assuming that once he made this suggestion, everybody in the room who are staunchly right-wing Republicans, conservatives, their jaws must have hit the floor. Oh my God. No, we can't do that. How dare you talk about Medicare for all? No, we can't do that. Remember, Donald, we have friends and donors that don't want Medicare for all. No, they like this system. And if you change the system, that will be very bad for them. And in turn, it will be very bad for you. And of course, since Donald doesn't know policy, he only knows personalities, right? So, of course, he equates the ACA to Obama. I don't like Obama. I hate Obamacare. And he also equates now single payer, Medicare for all, to Bernie Sanders. Well, he didn't like Bernie Sanders either. So now he's very, very against that bill because he's very, very against those two people. Trump's not a very complicated person to figure out, especially when you realize what truly drives him. Vanity and money. Still is interesting, though. And one more thing. If Trump decides to go Medicare for all, I don't know. Like, I think half the progressive base would melt. Seriously, our brains would explode. We wouldn't know what to make of it. To be honest, like the centrists are already against it. So the resistance or whatever, they would of course be, they would have the same position. Oh, look at that. Donald Trump, pie in the sky, Medicare for all. Can't have that. So that's what you'd see from the resistance. But I'm curious as how the progressives, fellow progressives would take this. I would take it because I think it's policy. Policy over people. I don't care if it's the worst person putting forward the best policy. I'll give him credit for it because it's good policy and it'll be there far longer and long after President Trump is gone from office. So just think of it that way. All right. Let's move on here. Now, White House advisor Stephen Miller was escorted off the set of CNN's State of the Union on Sunday after a controversial interview with host Jake Tapper. Let me start that again. That was terrible. There's a little bit of drama on the set of CNN's State of the Union where White House advisor Stephen Miller had to be escorted off the set after a very controversial interview with host Jake Tapper. Now, I want to show you that interview, show you how it got, why it got so heated, and then we'll talk about the drama afterwards. Let's take a look.
But plenty of questions on immigration. You've attempted to filibuster by talking about your flights with the president. I want to ask you a question because
don't be condescending, Jake.
Stephen, the president and the White House.
The reason why I want to talk about the president and the White House. The reason why I want to talk about the president's experiences, what I've seen with him traveling to meet dozens of foreign leaders, with his incredible work.
Okay, you're not answering the questions.
No,
I understand.
You have 24 hours a day of anti-Trump material, you're not going to give 3 minutes for the American people to hear the real experience of Donald Trump.
There's one viewer that you care about right now, and you're being obsequious. You're being a factotum in order to please him, okay?
No.
And I think I've wasted enough of my viewers' time.
You know who I care
Stephen.
about?
As Republicans, lawmakers call for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to resign. In a major reversal, Democrats are now coming to his defense. What changed? We'll ask the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee next.
Ooh, that got a little spicy in there. Okay, so let me both defend and criticize CNN. And so in doing so, I'm actually going to go after Stephen Miller first and explain to you why he should not have been on CNN at all in the first place. Now, for one, Stephen Miller, he's full of shit, right? He's Donald Trump's lackey, right? Now, earlier part of the interview, which I did not show you, he talked about the factory workers losing their jobs, which is a very important concern. As a former factory worker, I definitely empathize. I lost my job in a bad trade deal, right? Thanks to NAFTA. My job went to Mexico, and a lot of people's jobs, that people that I knew, their job went to Mexico. So I'm very, very tuned in, right, to that concern over outsourcing. Now, he goes from, let's think about those people to, let's go to talking about uncontrolled immigration, how that is the fault of uncontrolled immigration. No, no, no. See, the immigration from Mexico, specifically, in 2017, is at a 17-year low. Now, that same statistic, by the way, President Trump took credit for, despite actually not doing anything. And you know what's funny? There's another stat where President Trump had actually deported less people in 2017 than Obama had in the previous year. President Obama is the deporter-in-chief, or was the deporter-in-chief. And yet, Donald Trump's supposed to be tough on immigration, right? Deported less people. That's amazing. That's amazing. Not that I'm in favor of mass deportations. I am in favor of deporting people who are criminals, who actually do violent crimes, and gang members. That's fine. And nobody wants those people here. Immigrants, other undocumented immigrants, don't want those people here because it makes them look bad. So, yeah, I'm in favor of that. And the Obama administration did focus on that, where the Trump administration is like, I don't know, you brown and you're here illegally? Get out. We're kicking you out. We're kicking you out. So that's what they're doing here. But, see, here's the thing, right? As much as CNN, and this is where the criticism comes into play, as much as they don't report on issues like factory workers losing their jobs because of outsourcing, because these corporations would rather go to Vietnam to exploit cheap labor, well, Trump also doesn't talk about that cause. No, the administration just like Stephen Miller, frame it as we've got to give corporations more tax cuts to keep them here. So, and then we've got to get rid of the illegals. See, they're demagogues. This is classic demagoguery. Instead of blaming the billion-dollar companies for going elsewhere to exploit cheap labor, let's blame the most powerless people in America, immigrants, because that's who Stephen Miller is. Speaking to the New York Times, and let me give you more information about who Stephen Miller is. A Trump team colleague described Miller as, quote, fiercely loyal to the president, a true believer in every sense of the word. I'm pretty sure he believes more in Trump's rhetoric than Donald Trump does. Now, he's also a miserable person and deeply, deeply racist. In fact, a lot of people went and talked to people who had went to school with Stephen Miller, right? Back in high school, he was showing these racist views. Student body president Justin Brownstone said Miller enjoyed saying things that were perceived as racist. The more he offended, the happier he was. So he got a rise out of being racist to people and saying racist things. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean he's a racist, right? If he just says racist things to get a rise out of people, oh, he's just trolling. He's just trolling. He perfected the art of trolling before trolling. Well, let's see if that's true. Oscar De La Torre, for his former high school counselor, said Miller frequently claimed that because he, a white male, didn't experience racism or sexism, that students of color were just making it up. Oh, you guys are just victims. You're victims, man. No, he didn't believe oppression existed at all. Since he didn't experience it himself, well, then that must not exist. It sounds a lot like climate denial. It was cold today, so global warming doesn't exist. It's dry today, so water doesn't exist. No, that's not how it works. Now, De La Torre said, this guy is 17 years old, and it's listening like someone who was 70 years old in the 1930s. Now there's more. Charles Gould, whom the Daily News describes as Miller's schoolmate from 1st to 12th grade, wrote, Miller was an unabashed racist. No, I'm not being oversensitive, and no, I'm not using the R word where it doesn't apply. In private conversations, he was constantly making disparaging remarks about the African American, Latino, and Asian students at our school. Classmate Natalie Flores, who wrote a Huffington Post piece about growing up with Miller, told Univision that Miller seemed to have, quote, an intense hatred toward people of color, especially toward Latinos. She added, I think his big problem was the Latinos. He thought they lived off welfare. So that's just a few examples of who the real Stephen Miller is. So it's not going to surprise you what happened after the interview. Two sources close to the situation told Business Insider that after the taping was done, Miller was asked to leave several times. Miller ignored those requests and had stayed there apparently to argue with Jake Tapper some more until security was called and he was escorted out of the building. And it's likely, and I'm just making a guess here, I don't think it's the first time. I would bet that it's not the first time he was escorted out of a building that he was asked to leave. I mean, there's a video out there floating around where he was basically booed off stage at his high school. So, for making racist jokes. So, now, is Tapper right to cancel the to have canceled that interview? Yes. My problem with CNN is why bring him on in the first place? So, look, my defense of CNN is, okay, you can kick whoever you want off. That's fine. And I actually support that because people like that don't belong on television. The problem with CNN is that he brought that guy on television. Why bring him on in the first place? You already know what kind of person he is, right? They knew what they were getting into. And so that's my point. They bring him on because of the ratings. You can talk about immigration. You can talk about factory workers losing their jobs. I encourage those discussions. You could talk about any other issue, climate change, without bringing on crazy people to argue with. This guy is a white supremacist, and CNN gave him a platform as if he's credible. Now, of course, it looks like he's not likely to come back to CNN, at least. But the problem is that even if you argue against them, as Jake Tapper does, right, their ideas are debated as if they are credible. And that's the problem. And so that credibility is a big problem. And I have another problem with CNN as well. It's how they always try to analyze the president's tweets as if they're some sort of political strategy or something like that. No, there's no strategy there. There's nothing really behind it. He's just an idiot who says randomly stupid things. So my issues with CNN and cable news aside, I should do 100% agree with Tapper and that Miller was out there trying to make his boss happy. That was his sole purpose for being on that show. CNN brought him on to get the ratings. They got the ratings. And Miller was there just to make Trump happy. And on that, did he succeed? Well, let's look at one Trump tweet where he said, Jake Tapper of fake news CNN just got destroyed in his interview with Stephen Miller of the Trump administration. Watch the hatred and unfairness of this CNN flunky. Well, mission accomplished, Stephen. Mission accomplished. All right. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with the terrorist you never heard of. So stay right here. We'll be right back. Around the nation, right here, TOT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. I just want to remind everybody, please give us a like and a share if you haven't already. And, of course, thank you guys for watching. A lot of viewers today, so that is super awesome. Thank you for joining me. All right. So let's get to the next story here. And, again, you are not going to be surprised at what you find here. All right. Now, back in October of last year, you might have heard a little bit about a foiled terrorist attack on a train. Now, according to new unsealed court documents about this attempted attack, revealed that a man armed with a handgun and other weapons had attempted to derail a train. Now, the FBI claims that a Missouri man broke into a restricted area of the cross-country train back in October and decided to pull the emergency brake in an effort to derail it. Well, that's interesting, right? So he's armed and tried to derail a train likely filled with passengers, right? So how come we didn't hear anything about it? Well, we didn't hear much. Fox News did report it. At least they reported it earlier today. But, okay, I mean, didn't really hear anything from the president. I mean, he should be proud that his FBI, even though there is an investigation on him ongoing, led by the FBI, but they foiled a terrorist attack. Well, you would think that would be good news, right? I mean, despite any disagreements you might have with the FBI, you would at least want to say, hey, thanks to the brave men and women who helped foil this terrorist attack, right? And even if it isn't the FBI, even if you're not going to give them credit for any sort of intelligence, well, maybe you would give the Amtrak workers there who helped stop this potential attack from succeeding on this Amtrak, right? You would at least give credit, right? Anything like that? Anything? No. But as you can see, there's a reason that he didn't say anything about this. According to the criminal complaint, the train was jolted to a halt in rural Nebraska. An Amtrak staff restrained the man, identified as 26-year-old Taylor Michael Wilson, as he yelled phrases like, "I'm the conductor, bitch," and attempted to reach inside his waistband. Now, it doesn't sound like somebody who is all that well mentally, but hey, look, again, you could say that anybody who orchestrates or tries to orchestrate a terrorist attack is not all mentally there. I think that's, I guess, a catch-all. And maybe I should avoid using it. So he stops this train, reaches into his waistband as he's being restrained, and he yells, "I'm the conductor, bitch." And no, you're not. First of all, you're not the conductor. And second of all, I am surprised that he's not dead. Look, I don't know the policy of guns on Amtrak. I do know that passengers can now carry guns on Amtrak, so that's dangerous. But I don't know about staff, right? So maybe they're not even armed. But you want to know the reason, like I said, why he is not trumpeted as a case of domestic terrorism? Well, let's look at a picture. Oh, right. That would be why. He doesn't look Muslim to me. He looks quite white. Now, it actually gets worse. Not only is he, well, he's a neo-Nazi. So, I mean, there's no point dancing around that. He is a neo-Nazi. Vice explains that when authorities finally arrived at the scene and arrested Wilson, did not shoot him, by the way, they found a loaded .38 caliber handgun tucked into his pants. He was reaching for that waistband. And a nearby backpack containing more information, a knife, and a face mask, according to the Lincoln Journal-Star. Wilson was also carrying a business card for one of the largest active neo-Nazi groups in the country, the National Socialist Movement, which is not at all socialist. Surprising. And had white supremacist materials and a series of individual PDF files, each with a skill related to killing people, on his phone. FBI agent, Special Agent Monte Zapleski, wrote in the affidavit. The described documents are possessed and utilized by individuals and groups attempting or planning to commit criminal acts or acts of terrorism or violence, she noted. So, he wanted to kill people, and it looked like he was preparing to do so. Now, when authorities searched Wilson's home, it got worse. They found a hidden compartment behind his refrigerator filled with weapons, ammo, handmade body armor, and white supremacist documents. An acquaintance who knew Wilson also told authorities that the 26-year-old had an expressed interest in killing black people and was a part of the recent neo-Nazi protests in Charlottesville, Virginia. And according to the Dispatch, he has also been linked to 2 alleged hate crimes, a road rage incident in which he pointed a gun at a black woman while driving, and pasting whites-only stickers at a local St. Louis restaurant. Now do you understand why nobody in the Trump administration is saying anything about this? Imagine if it were a Muslim, right? Or a black person. Imagine if they tried to derail a train. Imagine if they pointed guns at white people while they were driving. Imagine if they put a sign, "Blacks only," on a restaurant. Or "Muslims only." Can you imagine the outrage? And rightfully so, because you shouldn't be putting that either. You shouldn't be putting whites only. You shouldn't be putting blacks only on things. But the outrage that you would be hearing from the Trump administration would be epic. The violent Muslims and blacks, got to build a wall. Got to build a wall. Got to do more police enforcement. We got to give the cops more guns. We got to give them more leeway. But when it's a white supremacist, I mean, I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything. Look, it's the same thing with the guy that killed his girlfriend's parents in Virginia after they discovered that, again, he was a neo-Nazi. They had found tweets of this guy who supported Adolf Hitler, white nationalism, and that he had endorsed a novel about a race war. Did we hear condolences from the president on that? No. Is the Trump administration even attempting to tackle the growing white supremacist in America movement at all? No. No, they're not. I happen to believe that we should target all forms of terrorism and protect ourselves against it. That includes Islamic terrorism, which is dangerous, but not necessarily dangerous inside of America anymore. And I can argue that it never really was more dangerous in America than other forms of terrorism, which include white extreme right-wing terrorism. That's what we have here. That's what the white supremacist movement is about. Doing terrorism to African Americans and Latinos. And in this case, look, our president, our administration has emboldened white supremacists. And they don't push back against that because guess what? That is their base. They don't want to offend their biggest fans. That's why they're doing nothing about a threat that is actually far more dangerous in America than Islamic terrorism or any other form of terrorism. And look, the Trump administration, they're not doing anything about it. But to be fair, the Obama administration didn't do a lot about it either, despite numerous warnings we had. And you know why? Look, they had a task force that would look into right-wing domestic terrorism. Republicans and Fox News got outraged. How dare you look at Republicans? How dare you look at right-wingers? We are the most patriotic. We would never do anything like that. And the Obama administration, President Obama was like, oh, you're right, you're right. Let's pare down that task force. Let's leave one person in there to investigate right-wing terror. You're far more likely to be killed by one of these people who are in the right, the extreme right. Not saying that all Republicans are right-wing domestic terrorists. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying that when you are on the side, the extreme side, that uses rhetoric that dehumanizes African Americans and Latinos, Muslims, and anybody else who isn't white, and you're, and you're white supremacist, you got to look into these people. And you have to stop. And thankfully, the FBI and Amtrak, that's what they actually did. So thank goodness that at least this white supremacist is an idiot, and he's too dumb to actually hurt anybody. But who knows if we can say that about the next one. Okay. That's it. I'm going to save the next story for tomorrow, actually. The Amazon story. So we're going to do that. All right. So that's it for the show. We're gonna head out of here. I do have an important announcement. I'm gonna be talking to Sam Ronan on Friday, so that's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna set up the details later on, but I just wanted to drop that announcement. So because he is running for office in, I believe it's Ohio, so that's gonna be a really interesting discussion that we're gonna have. So, all right. That's it. Thanks, everybody. If you haven't already, please leave us a like and please subscribe to the channel to see more live streams like this. We do it every day, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here, TYT Nation, or on our Facebook page, facebook.com/TYT Nation. All right. Love you guys. Thanks you so much. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.